So you're thinking about buying an investment property along the Oregon coast. Well, I have bad news. It's not going to be easy. And it's not going to be easy because the Oregon coast is highly regulated for short-term vacation rentals. So if you're thinking about buying investment property, or if you're like so many other people that are maybe just buying a second home that someday will be your forever home, and in the meantime, when you're not using that property, maybe you want to rent it out and have a little bit of an additional income, well, it is going to be very tricky for you to find a property where you can actually accomplish that. In this video, I'm going to break down the entire Oregon coast and very quickly cover all of the major towns to give you an idea of what the rules and regulations are for short-term rentals. So if you are thinking about it, if you are in the market, this video should save you a lot of time. Let's go. Everyone, welcome back to the channel, Living on the Oregon Coast. I am your host, Seth Marchant, licensed broker in the state of Oregon. The first thing I want to point out to this is there is one major caveat in that I'm shooting this around coming into spring of 2024, and these rules, as we've seen over the years, are very often changing. If you went back about 6 or 7 years ago, actually, we didn't have much regulation along the Oregon coast for short-term rentals. But with the rise of the Airbnbs and the VRBOs and it becoming more attractive for people to own real estate, the short-term rental economy on the Oregon coast has really blown up. And so that has caused a lot of local municipalities to go ahead and regulate short-term rentals. And so it's going to vary from county to county, town to town. You're also going to have HOAs and CCNRs, conditions, covenants, and regulations to contend with. So there's a lot to keep track of. Now first, we're going to focus on short-term rentals. Why? And what's the difference between short and long-term rentals? Typically, a short-term rental is going to be defined as a property that you would rent under 30 days. Long-term is going to be 30 days and up. And we're going to focus on the short-term because the long-term rentals, 30 days and up, aren't highly regulated along the Oregon coast. So if you buy a home and you want to rent it out to somebody in 30-day increments or more, you're probably not going to have an issue with that. If you have questions, you can get in touch. I can dig into it more, but short term is going to be highly regulated. So we're really going to focus on that for this video. So some of the things that you are going to need, what are you going to need? Because you don't just need to simply buy the property and then get a short-term vacation rental license. There's going to be quite a few other things that you most likely will need. Now, again, it's going to be different from town to town or county to county, depending on if the property that you're looking at is in an unincorporated area. But I'm going to cover just the general things that you will typically expect that you'll need or that will need to be in place in order for you to rent out your home. So the first thing, of course, short-term vacation rental license. In some places, that's going to be a permit that's just labeled as a land use permit. It's not specifically a short-term vacation rental permit. Just about everywhere it's going to require you to have a business license. You're also going to need insurance. Most places are going to ask you to provide details about the home, such as a floor plan. And if you're in an area where you're on septic or well, most likely there's going to have to be an inspection for those things. So you're going to have some additional inspections if you're not on city water and city sewer. And if you're not familiar with the Oregon coast, if that sounds weird to you, it's not too uncommon to be on septic or well. The taxes, property taxes, typically going to need to be in good standing. And a big one that I think seems like some people don't realize or maybe just don't think of, most places are going to require you, if you rent the place out, to have a property manager within a very close proximity to the property, whether that's you or a property management company that you're using to manage the property. So in other words, you might not be able to be living in Portland, a couple hours away from your vacation rental somewhere along the Oregon coast. And there's going to be a handful of other small things, but those are the big ones you're commonly going to encounter. Now, beyond that, there's going to be a handful of small rules for every city. Just because you can get a permit, just because you have all those things in place, there are a few handful of things that you might commonly bump into. For example, the property that you have in mind, maybe it doesn't have enough parking, or maybe it has street parking and street parking is prohibited. Maybe it's within 300 feet of another vacation rental, which some areas are going to regulate based on density. So you can't be too close to another vacation rental. So there's also going to be a handful of small rules from town to town that are going to vary that could also prohibit you. So who regulates these things? Towns, counties, and there are also going to be exceptions. And I'm not going to be able to cover every single exception. So if there is a place maybe that you're looking at a property, and I've listed the town that the property that you're looking at, I've listed that town as prohibited for vacation rentals, you can still get in touch. And sometimes there's some workarounds. Sometimes there's some loopholes. For example, if you look up Newport right now, you'll see that vacation rental permits are prohibited in Newport, but there is a place in Newport, little place called Nye Beach, where they have a cap of 200 vacation rental permits. It's currently full. There's currently a wait list, but I just point that out because if you do a quick internet search, again, Newport being an example, you might think, well, there's no way I can get a short-term vacation rental in Newport. Again, there are exceptions. They are few and far between, but I don't want to dissuade you from a particular area just because I said that area currently prohibits short-term vacation rentals. Now, with that being said, that's probably going to be the case. Again, the exceptions are very few and far between, but if you really have a place that you love, I'm happy to see if there is an exception. Okay, now I'm very quickly going to run you through north to south. I'm going to cover the big towns. So if I don't mention a town, it's not because it's not relevant, or it's not because it's maybe not a good place to have a short-term rental. Probably isn't if it's a smaller town, but most of the towns that I will not mention in this video are going to be unincorporated. So if an area is unincorporated, the rules are typically just going to default to the county, and I will reference the county rules for all of these areas. So starting north to south, we're going to start with Astoria. Short-term vacation rentals prohibited in Astoria. The only exceptions, and there will be exceptions for just about every town, this exception is going to be true for most towns. You can have a short-term vacation rental in an area that's zoned commercially for a single-family home. Now, those things don't really exist very much on the Oregon coast, or really kind of anywhere in Oregon, or probably where you live, right? You don't see single-family homes typically in commercial zones. But if you do see one along the Oregon coast, chances are you can rent it out as a short-term rental. The only downside about that, of course, is if you have a single-family home in an area zoned commercial, it might not be exactly the most desirable type of vacation rental that somebody's looking for. It might not be the most desirable location, but just know that it is possible. Now, as far as county goes, if you go outside of Astoria city limits, you'll be in Clatsop County. And Clatsop County currently does not have any sort of prohibition on short-term vacation rental permits. So anything outside of these towns that I'm going to mention in Clatsop County, you're going to be able to get a permit with a handful of exceptions. And this is going to apply to most counties along the Oregon coast. If a county permits short-term vacation rentals, then it's going to be in just about every zone with the exception of farm and forestry zones. So if something's zoned farm or forestry, chances are, even if regulations allow for short-term rentals in that area, it's not going to allow for that particular type of property. And now I want to point these things out because some of these properties, or some of the properties that reside in unincorporated areas, are going to be some of the best opportunities for short-term vacation rentals. And looking at this map here, just a couple on the list that are unincorporated would be Surf Pines, for example. This is an unincorporated area. You can have short-term rentals in this area, despite being prohibited in Warrenton, which technically Surf Pines is a part of. Warrenton has the same rules as Astoria. Short-term rentals are prohibited in city limits. Same thing with the commercial zoning. A lot of these areas also are going to have a few other exceptions for bed and breakfasts, or what's called a homestay. Homestay is typically smaller than a bed and breakfast. Bed and breakfast is usually 3 to 7 bedrooms. A homestay is usually like 1 to 3 bedrooms. Both typically require the owner to be on premise and to provide a handful of things to the guests, such as breakfast. So if you see a place that allows homestays or B&Bs, that is what they're referring to. All right. Next on the list, Gearhart. Again, these areas are unincorporated, so I'm skipping them. Surf Pines. Gearhart allows short-term vacation rentals in one zone. That zone is the R3 zone. There's a bunch of condos there. There's maybe about 20 single-family homes there. It's right by the downtown. The rest is restricted. Beyond Gearhart, Seaside. Seaside does allow short-term vacation rentals. For the most part, they are really on the west side of the Nicanacum River right here, and it's limited by density. So What you'll have to do is you have to talk to the city and give them an address, and they'll give you an idea if it will be approved. Of course, they can't see into the future. Things can always change, but as it stands right now, when you provide them with the information, and this is something that we do on behalf of our buyers, we're happy to do it for you too, we can get an idea if you can obtain a short-term vacation rental permit in this area of Seaside. It is very dense. There are already a lot of short-term vacation rental permits, so most likely you will have to wait. But just know that for Seaside, it's just going to be based on density. Just south of Seaside, the next one that is going to be in this county, and then we'll move on to the next county, is going to be Cannon Beach, one of the most popular places along the Oregon coast. They have kind of a unique short-term vacation rental structure in that you cannot rent out your home to more than one group in a 14-day period. So basically, you're looking at keeping it under 30 days, 2 renters per month. Ideally, 14 days a piece. So Cannon Beach is going to be somewhat limited. There's about 200 permits right in there as well. There's currently a wait list. So Cannon Beach is very, very difficult to get into. But if you can get an investment property, that is one of probably the top places along the Oregon coast, at least if you're really focused on, an investment perspective, a return on your investment, as opposed to, some people are just looking for a property that they can use as a second home and maybe rent out when they're not using. Next, we're going to move on to Tillamook County. So Tillamook County, there was a lottery actually back in October of 2023. It's open to apply, but I believe there is a wait list right now. And there's going to be a lot of smaller towns in Tillamook County. See all of these towns right here. There's going to be a bunch of small kind of unincorporated areas in Tillamook County. But the first big one to the north is going to be Manzanita, often likened to Cannon Beach. They are currently capped. There's a wait list in Manzanita. What I've been told, that wait list is pretty long. You're probably going to be waiting for a long time. Moving along south, again, these are all small areas. Some of these are unincorporated. They're going to fall into Tillamook County rules. Rockaway Beach. So this will be your most friendly vacation rental spot along the entire Oregon coast. Why do I say it's the most friendly? Well, one, anybody can get a permit. Regulations are few and far between. There's no wait list. They tend to go through very quickly. And more importantly than that, certain towns have different sentiments towards short-term vacation rentals. Some towns feel like there's too many. You get a lot of that in Lincoln City. That's why it's so highly regulated there. Some towns really embrace the short-term rentals because they know that the tourism is really what props up the economy, and Rockaway Beach is one of those towns. So you don't hear a lot of talk around the town for people wanting to ban short-term rentals. So if you're concerned about the future and what that might look like, because that is a valid concern, like I said, things are trending towards more regulation along the Oregon coast, not less. Rockaway Beach is going to be about the safest bet you can find. There's a couple other places too that I will mention that are very friendly, but Rockaway Beach is probably going to be number one on the list. Just south of that, Garibaldi, small area. But the residential zoning does allow short-term rentals and bed and breakfasts. Tillamook right now is under the same rules as the county. And then just to the south of that, Pacific City, also going to be unincorporated area following Tillamook County rules. This is definitely one of the more up-and-coming areas along the Oregon coast. So it's been a popular area for investors to look to in the past. But this is one of those areas that could possibly be regulated to a higher degree. The sentiment is not the same in Pacific City as it is in Rockaway Beach. So that's definitely one. If you see this video sometime down the line, if it's not recent for you, definitely want to look into Pacific City and check in on the latest rules if you reach out to us. Next, we are going to move down to Lincoln County. So Lincoln County is going to be Lincoln City, right about here, all the way down to Yachats. This is going to be the most regulated part of the entire Oregon coast. So currently there's a moratorium for the county until August of this year. And Lincoln City just made new rules for their short-term vacation rentals. Currently in these areas, there's about 450 short-term vacation rental permits. The new zones, of which there are 7 zones, are only going to allow a little bit less than half of that. It's like 200 and change, 211, something like that. So the way that it's going to work is these short-term vacation rental permits, they expire after a year. Some places is 2 years, but it's usually about a year. So what's going to happen is these permits will expire and people won't be able to renew until they get down below that cap. Then they'll open it back up again. So Lincoln County, anywhere that's not in the city, that's unincorporated, Lincoln County is probably going to be a no-go for a long time. Now, there are a few exceptions. Rhodes Inn is one exception. And in fact, something unique about Rhodes Inn, and a good spot for me to point this out, there was a rule that was made in November of 2017 that lasts 7 years, so it ends this November of 2024, that allows homeowners to actually transfer their short-term vacation rental permits to new buyers. In other words, the permits convey, which is very rare for the Oregon coast. Typically, permits do not convey upon the sale of a home. So if you're looking for something easy, if you can find something for sale in Rhodes Inn that has a vacation rental permit, which a lot of those homes do, you might be able to get in real easy up until November of this year. And then one other quick thing, Lincoln City. There is one place in Lincoln City that's unique in that it's actually designated, zoned as a vacation rental area. So this area, Olivia Beach, there's a handful of homes in this area right here that are zoned VR, meaning if you buy a home in this area, you can get a vacation rental permit, no questions asked. There's no wait list. You just have to go through, the permits, the insurance, all that stuff that I mentioned before. But it's going to be one of the easier places if you can find a property for sale in Olivia Beach to actually get a short-term vacation rental permit. Moving along south of Lincoln City, we're going to hit Depot Bay. Currently, you cannot get a vacation rental permit in Depot Bay, with the exception of, like in Astoria, of commercial zones. And there are a handful of single-family homes in commercial zones in Depot Bay. Newport, same thing. No vacation rental permits in Newport right now. This was that place I mentioned at the beginning of this video where Night Beach is, which is one of those few exceptions. There's about a cap for 200 permits in this area. And like I mentioned, there is a wait list, but it is possible to get a short-term vacation rental permit in Newport. One thing I should mention too, on that note, because we've got this before, if you're looking at VRBO or Airbnb and you're like, wait a second, there's a bunch of short-term vacation rentals in Newport. I'm looking at them right now on Airbnb. A couple things. Some places will grandfather in. Some of those permits will last for a long time. Some of them are lifetime. Some of them are like 5 years. Beyond that, some of them just aren't legal. The city points that out. A lot of the cities will say that on their website. If you see an Airbnb online, and a lot of these cities will actually have lists of the short-term rentals and the owners and all of that. So you can actually look it up and cross-reference to see if it's legal or not. There's a fair amount of illegal short-term rentals along the Oregon coast. I wouldn't recommend it. You're probably going to get caught. The fines are hefty. It's probably not worth it, but there's people out there doing it. Next, okay, I mentioned Rockaway Beach going to be the most friendly. The second most friendly, or at least like top 3, Waldport. You can get a vacation rental permit very easily in Waldport. There's no wait list. It's a great friendly little town about 30 minutes south of Newport. And then next big one in Lincoln County, Yachats. They do allow short-term vacation rentals. They're capped at 125, and I think they hit that cap recently. There's currently a wait list. It doesn't sound like you'd have to wait too long. It's probably not going to be years, but there is a wait list. Next, beyond that, Lane County. Lane County is a long, funny county that just kind of has this little skinny section that extends out to Florence. So Lane County really covers Eugene and Springfield. That's where all the population is. So as far as Lane County goes, it's actually very friendly for permits in Lane County. And Eugene is actually a great place to invest in short-term rentals as well. But Florence, probably going to be number 3 on our list for top most friendly. Again, Rockaway Beach, Waldport, and then Florence. No wait list, no cap. Again, similar rules. As long as it's residential, you can get a short-term vacation rental permit. If it's forest or farmland or something like that, probably going to be a no-go. Just south of that, we're going to run into Reedsport, which is in Douglas County. And currently, there is a moratorium on permits in Reedsport. All right, and then next on the list, Coos County. Coos County, which is going to be Coos Bay, North Bend, down to Bandon. This area right here. It's the most populous area along the Oregon coast. So for Coos County, as it stands right now, It's not a short-term vacation rental permit. It's a land use permit, but you can get a land use permit if you're outside of city limits and and have a short-term rental. North Bend also allows short-term rentals. There's no cap. You can get a permit pretty quickly. Coos Bay, there is a cap at about 75 people. Spoke to the city. It sounds like there's a wait list, but it's probably not too long. And then Bandon, which is a very, very popular place specifically for golf. Bandon has a golf course that's world renowned. So there's actually people that fly from all over the world to come to Bandon. So Bandon would be a good place for short-term vacation rentals. They do allow them there right now, although you can't get a permit in Bandon due to density. There is really no place in Bandon that I am aware of that you can get a permit. You can get a permit, of course, outside of city limits, which is going to be right outside of here. So you can get pretty close to Bandon, maybe service some of those golfers coming through, but probably don't expect to actually get a permit in Bandon anytime in the near future. And then finally, we will move on to the last county, Curry County. First one is going to be Port Orford. There is currently, it is capped and there is a wait list, although the city said is not very long. Gold Beach is going to be your next big city. Gold Beach is capped at just 21 permits. I know that doesn't sound like much, but the mayor himself, and this is on their website, said that that number was determined based on demand. So they believe that there isn't a demand for more people looking for short-term vacation rentals in Gold Beach. They believe that the current accommodations, the hotels and motels that they have there are adequate. So we don't expect that number to change. That was instated maybe a couple years ago, so semi-recently. Same thing with commercial. You can find some commercially zoned areas with single family, but Gold Beach, you can get one there, but probably not anytime in the near future because it's capped at 21, and there's just so few people, so few things that are opening up. And then finally, Brookings, you can get a conditional permit in Brookings. It's going to be fairly easy to do. You may run into, some types of rules like density or whatever that may be. But for the most part, Brookings is a fairly short-term vacation rental friendly area. So I hope that was concise and succinct for you to help you kind of better understand that this is highly nuanced. Again, my name is Seth Marchant. I'm a licensed broker in the state of Oregon as well as Washington. Sometimes we get people looking in Southwest Washington. And if you have questions about investment properties, understanding the financials for these properties, or again, if you want to figure out what's the latest regulations, is there a wait list? Do I have to wait? Is there any exceptions in the areas that I'm looking? Make sure and reach out to us. I invite you to call, text, email. You can find all of the contact information in the description of this video below. You can also hit the QR code. If you're watching from TV, that'll take you to our website where you can find all of our contact information. And if you want to see more videos about what it's like to live along the Oregon coast and all the things you need to know, the pros and cons, all the things you need to know to move here, all the reasons why you might not want to move here, make sure and subscribe to our channel. We've got over 100 videos. We release new videos weekly. And if this video helped you, give me a thumbs up. Lets me know I'm doing a good job. Feel free in the comments to let me know, are you looking for an investment property? What do you think about the regulations? Should it be more regulated? Should it be less regulated? Do you ever stay at short-term vacation rentals along the Oregon coast? What's your experience? Anything relating to that, feel free to reply below. And until next time, take care, everyone.